Okay, in this next section, now that we've already created our variables, we need objects. We need the objects before we create the rules because usually we manipulate the objects with the rules. So let me show you over here in my plan that I've got off to the side in my guess my number script. What we're going to do over here in number 3, we're going to create the actual game slide, and on that we'll need a title, an input box, we'll need feedback text for whether they're too high, too low. We'll need debugging feedback so that we can see how we're doing when we create our rules. We'll need a submit button. We'll need to indicate how many guesses are remaining. And then we're going to create our final slides as well. We need the I got it slide or you got it slide, and a sound and an action that might go along with that, as well as a dope you didn't get it slide. So with that said, I'm going to hide this off to the side and we'll go ahead and try and create these items. So first of all, we just need a title. And on this title, I'm going to say, guess my number. And we can add maybe another text box on here that underneath gives some instructions. So in this case, I think we'll tell people to guess a number between 1 and 1,000. So I'll click in here and I'll say, guess a number between 1 and 1,000. You have 3 guesses. Okay, if I look over here, I say, well, I've got a title. I also need an input box, it looks like. So this time I'm going to go up to text, and instead of putting text caption, I'm going to choose this text entry box. Now, text entry box, you'll notice, comes with this submit button right by it. Initially, I thought I might use that, but ultimately, I think it's going to benefit us more to create our own button. So I'm going to click on this submit button that comes with it and delete it. And Adobe Captivate is going to ask me if I'm really sure I want to delete that item. I'll say yes for now. So here's a text entry box. The text entry is a little bit small. It's like 12-point font when we begin with. So I like to go over to the properties once I've selected that text entry box and make it a little bit larger. Let's make it a 24-point font. And if we scroll down here, we can see we can make it bold. That'll just make it a little bit easier to see. In order to accommodate that, I'm going to make that box a little bit bigger. Okay, so I say, okay, I've got my title, I've got my directions, I've got my text entry box. If I look at my plan, I can see that I also need the feedback text. I need the you're too high or you're too low. So let's go ahead and create another text caption, and we'll just say too high. Now this one I'm going to go ahead and center, and I will take that text. I'm also going to make it, let's say, 28-point font. Now, without the font selected or without the box selected, that 28-point font didn't take. So either select the entire box or highlight the text within the box that you would like to select. With the whole box highlighted, I can now go ahead and make that font more the way that I like. And let's suppose I wanted to have a red color to this, right? And then I'm going to place this above the box and too high. And one of the things I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and name this right now. So over in the properties panel on the right hand side with the box selected, I'm going to, instead of text caption 4, I'm going to call this FDBK feedback underscore too high. And this way I'll know that I'll be able to refer to that when I get into programming and having the rules come into play. Another thing that I might want to do with this font is I might want to actually save this font because I'm going to use it and apply it to the too low as well. So over here in the properties, right next to where I named it, I'm going to click on this drop down. I'm going to click on create new style, and it's going to ask me how I want to name this, and instead I'm going to call this feedback, and I'll hit OK. So now when I create another box and I say, hey, well, I'm going to have another text caption, and this text caption is going to say too low, and I'm also going to place it right in the same place where I placed this too high. And then over in the properties, I'm going to name it FDBK feedback underscore too low. And now instead of messing with the font, I'm just going to easily apply this other style. So I'm going to say, click on this style, and where it says style name, I'm going to click on style name, drop down, and you notice that feedback style that I just saved is right there. So now I'm able to create that same style that I had for the too high. So now that I look at that, I've got the input box, I've got the feedback text, I've got debugging feedback, which I need to be able to create. Now remember, the debugging feedback isn't something that we would include for our end users, but it is something that I find extremely useful when I am coding myself. So I'm going to say current random number is. Now the way that we use variables inside of text in Captivate is right here I say current random number is, and now I want to insert a variable. The way that I do that is I have my cursor where I would like the variable to appear, and over on the right hand side with the properties selected, you notice there's this little X in square brackets. If I click on that, I can now choose a variable to insert, and in this case I already created the variables, so I'm going to go ahead and select the variable, and I'm going to say I want randnum. So I'm going to list that up there, and I've got randnum. I'm going to put this off to the side, and then that'll be there for the purposes of debugging. And if you'll remember, it should initially be 0 when we first go to test this. Now the next thing we're going to want to do is we are going to want to create a button. Since we got rid of the button that automatically comes with the input text box. So I'm going to go over to interactions and choose a button. Now this button appears, and it's just called button here at the bottom. And this button gives me a few more options than the button that comes automatically with a text input box. And I'm going to go ahead, and the caption on the button, if we look at the properties panel of this button, the caption right now, I'm going to name that submit instead of button. I can also choose a style if I would like maybe one of these other styles to it under the style name at the top. We could say default image button style, transparent. There's different types of styles. Right now I'm not going to go ahead and mess with that, but I am going to rename this button as the btn underscore submit. And that allows me to know that this is going to be a submit button. Now, if I look at the other objects that I need, I go back to my plan. I say, well, I need the debugging feedback. I needed the submit button. And I also need to see how many guesses are remaining. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab some of this subtitle that was automatically by default on my slide. And I'm actually going to delete that. I don't want a subtitle. That probably should have been my guess my number between 1 and 1,000. But I am going to use this caption text that's here, and I'm going to tell them how many guesses they have remaining. So I'll say guesses remaining. And now that I've said that, I'm going to take this box and resize it because it's really quite too big. And I'm going to put the guesses remaining right under my other elements that I have. Now I want the guesses remaining to also have a variable, right? We've created a variable, so we just learned how to do that. So if you remind yourself, I want the guesses remaining. I need the cursor, and once I've got the cursor in here, I can now go to my X insert variable. That's with the properties menu selected. And now with my X, this time the variable I'm going to select is the tries remaining. And I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And now we can see that that has shown up. Now with that, I should now have most of the elements that I need for my game. I have the title, I've got a subtitle, I have some feedback for too high or too low. We don't need just right feedback because that'll be the win condition. And then I'm also need an input box button that I can use to submit it, the guesses remaining, and I have over here a little bit of feedback for myself when I am debugging and checking the code. There's two more items that I'm going to need for this. I'm going to need a you got it slide, and I'm going to need a you missed it slide where I reveal what the actual number is. So in order to do that, I'm going to go ahead and click on add new slides. And I'm just going to add a new blank slide. And on this blank slide, let's say that this is the win slide. So what I'll do right here, right in the middle, is I'm going to say got it. Now we can fancy this up for a game if we wanted to. Maybe we'll center the text, and maybe we'll also make the text a little bit larger. Right in the middle, we'll say got it. Kind of looks like got milk. And we could have a cheering going on. Right now I'm not going to do any of that. But one thing I am going to do is with the slide selected over in the properties panel, I'm going to name this slide. And I'll call this slide, I'll just call it win. And I also need another slide for the lose condition. So I'm going to go back over to slides, and I'm going to click on new blank slide. And in this case, I'm going to add a text caption right in the middle, and I'll say nope, it was. And now what I want to do is I want to reveal what the actual random number was. Well, we've just done this twice before. What we need is we need to add a variable right into the middle of our sentence. So with my cursor blinking where I want my variable, I can click on make sure the properties panel is selected, and then I go to my variable and insert variable, and the variable I want now is random. So this should show what the random number is. And I'm going to make that box bigger and bolder, and I'll give this a feedback. And I actually can go ahead, I think I'll choose the feedback style on this that I created. And we can add a sound to this later on if we'd like. For now, I'm just going to have got it and nope, it was random. Now the thing that I did on the got it slide is I named this slide win. I'm going to go ahead and name this slide lose. And this way I know that I've got a win slide and a lose slide. And in fact, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my guess my number slide, and I'm going to name that game. This way I can refer to my slides by their titles. Now we've set up the objects that we needed. Now that we've done that, we can go ahead and move on to the rules.